In today's conversation, guys, I want to take you through a Q&A session. I want to answer some of the commonly asked questions, some questions that I've just picked randomly. I've picked 15 questions that job seekers ask, especially during job search. I get to engage with a lot of you people on my social media and specifically on LinkedIn, on TikTok. And I may not be able to answer each and every person, especially when people come to DMs and all that. But of course, I believe this is a good platform to have this conversation where I have picked 15 random questions that job seekers often ask, especially during the job search period. So are you ready for this conversation? So if you're here for the first time, my name is Nelly. I am a career coach. I am a HR professional. I talk to you guys about job search strategies. I share career growth tips. I have conversations. I bring people on this podcast from time to time to have workplace conversations that help us to change the narrative. I always say that we need to build workplaces where we don't survive, but we thrive. And also my mission is to help you build rewarding and fulfilling careers through sharing these tips and holding you through your career journey. So the 15 questions that I chose do not have any order. They are just those, the common questions I come across every time I'm interacting with job seekers. Every time even I'm having a conversation with a friend, with people within my network. So I believe there are questions that most job seekers usually ask. So I'll be reading out the question, then of course I'll be helping you to answer based on my opinion, based on my experience, based on my research, and based on my interaction with most job seekers, and also as a recruiter and as a talent management practitioner. So let's start with the first question. The first question is, should I send an email to follow up after an interview? That's a common question that you guys always ask, especially after going through an interview. We've always been told that after an interview, it's okay for you to send a thank you note, which I completely agree. But I don't think you should. I believe you should not send an email to follow up on the feedback of an interview. Reason being, every company or every recruiter has a timeline, or at least, being human, being courteous enough to send back a communication once they've interviewed you. So should you send an email to follow up on the feedback about the feedback of an interview after interviewing? From where I sit, no. Because if the company does not get back to you, it's not your problem, it's theirs. It reflects on their culture, it reflects on how they treat candidates. It has nothing to do with you. And I know most people after interviewing you will tell you that they'll give you feedback after a specific period of time. So should we send an email if they don't get back? No. If they don't get back, it entirely reflects on them. And of course, if they don't get back, it's either you didn't qualify for the job or they didn't proceed with that recruitment. So it has nothing to do with you. And I say that once a decision is made not to proceed with you for the interview, even if you send an email, will it really make a difference? So I say no. You don't necessarily have to send an email to follow up on an interview feedback. The second question, guys, that I get a lot from job seekers is on how much more you should ask for when you're transitioning from one job to another. That time you've gone for an interview, then you're asked, what is your salary expectation? So people usually ask, how much more should I ask for? Like currently, if I'm earning this a specific amount, how much more should I ask for? Because, of course, due to the fear of getting yourself asking for more or getting yourself asking for less. So my answer to this question, how much more should you ask for when you're transitioning from one job to another? is, I'll answer this in different ways. Number one is to understand the market pay for that job, because for each and every job, there is a market pay based on the skills of that job, based on the experience, based on the industry, and of course, based on the level where the job is. Like in financial institutions, maybe for example banks, there's usually a survey that is done, that you'll have access, of course, to the market rate pay for that industry. So you need to understand how much does that job pay in your industry, what is the pay. You also need to understand the organization. Like recently I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and I was telling her that she was looking for a job as a project manager. The project management job that you're looking for, there's a company who can pay you $2,000 for this job, and there is one that can pay $1,000. There's one who will only pay 500. So will only pay maybe will pay 500 or so. So you need to understand the level of the company, the type of the company. Is it a local company? Is it an SME? Is it a multinational? Even though we have the market pay rates, most companies will not be paying the same salary. There could be some slight difference. So apart from understanding the market pay lines of that job, you also need to know what you want. And guys, that's why I always say I get pissed off when someone gets into an interview and you ask them, or you ask about the salary expectation, then someone boldly tells you, I am okay with what the company is offering. Come on, how can you be okay with what the company is offering? Because I say, what if the company is offering what is below your expectation? So you also need to have a budget for yourself. Number one, we said understand the market pay lines, what the industry pays for that job. Then what is your expectation? Understand what you want. When you're looking for a job, I always say you need to be very clear about what you want. In that, I always say that I'm looking for this amount, so we can negotiate around that, but it can't go below this range. So it's important to know what you want. Then the next one that is also very, very, very important for you to note is that you need to understand, especially when it comes to industry increments, let me call it like that, because I've learned that there's some industry that when people are moving, they can do up to 15% on top of what you're currently earning. They can do up to 30%. Some industry can do 40%. Some can even do half. Some can even do 100%. So you need to understand the industry that you're operating in. What is the standard industry increase, especially when they're hiring people on board? You also need to understand that organization in terms of, you may not get the exact pay line, but as I just said, you need to understand the size of that organization. Can they pay that money that you're asking for? So you guys, those are the aspects that you need to consider. So when you're asked, or whenever you're looking for a job, you're very clear on how should you price yourself. There is really no specific answer. I wouldn't say that when you're transitioning between jobs, you need to, there's a standard like increment percentage that it needs to be 15, it needs to be 20, it needs to be 30. There is no standard, as long as you try, you align yourself, you align yourself with those guidelines, like the industry pay lines, what the industry is paying for that job at that level, with a level of years of experience and experience and the knowledge that you have, and of course getting to understand the company, and also putting your budget into consideration. The third question is, how should I respond in an interview when asked about my salary expectation? Should I give a range, or should I give an absolute figure? Or should I just say that I'm within the company budget? So of course, guys, the third one is a no. Do not always say that you're within the company's budget. What I always tell people is one of the most important things when you're setting out to look for a job is to put a price tag to yourself. Step out knowing what you want to be paid, and of course align it with your skill set, your experience, and what the industry is paying for that job. So should I give a range? Yes, you can give a range. It's okay to give a range after you've understood what the industry is paying, and of course after you've understood the value that the skills you have will contribute into that job. Should I give an absolute figure? That for me is the perfect option. I'm not saying it will be the best maybe for everyone, but for me, of course, when I'm looking for a job, I'll give an exact figure that I'm looking for. What that means for me is that you are someone who understands your value. You have done your research about the job, and you understand what the industry pays for that job. You understand what your peers with the same level of experience or within the range of your level of experience are being paid. And you're getting into a job, getting something that you're comfortable with. So that you don't get into a job and months or so into that job, you're making a change because of the salary dissatisfaction. So before you set out to look for a job, three key things: do your research well about what the industry pays for that job. Understand your value in terms of a person. Ensure that you have a price tag on yourself, because you are a person who's going to give a service. Oh, come on. For all good reasons, you have to be paid for the service that you're offering. And number three, of course, you need to understand you need to do your analysis to understand the company. Like I just said, I was talking to a friend of mine. I was talking to a friend of mine, a client of mine, of course, and telling her that, the project management job you're looking for, some company can pay you this amount, another can pay this, another can pay this, just for the same experience. So you need to also understand the company that you're going to. Which caliber is that company? Is it a multinational? Is it a local company? What level, what size is the company? So those are the things that you need to consider, guys. But again, never say that you're within the range of what the company is paying, because you can't fail to negotiate for yourself and get what you truly deserve. Please don't leave your fate to the employers or the recruiters who are hiring you. The fourth question is an interesting one, guys. The question is on how long should I stay in one job before making a change? Oh my goodness. This week, I think it was this week, when I put, at the beginning of this week, I put that post, a similar post on just telling people, we should not judge people who stay in one job for too long, or people who make changes very fast. Either way, there's some sort of perception that we usually have for these two people: someone who stays long, or someone who stays lesser, for a very short time. So here is my thought about this. I always say it's not about how long you stay, but it's about the value you can bring within that period that you're staying in a company. And I'd say that our priorities differ at different levels of our career. An example I like giving: if you get people in the childbearing age, or people with young children, having a job with a good insurance or medical cover is a plus. And you find most people in that category will prioritize such jobs over a job that maybe pays a lot of money but is not having a stable insurance or a stable medical cover. Having a job that has a hybrid or a remote job is a plus for a parent who wants to, who are parents, maybe a parent with young kids or teenagers who wants more time with family, or people who prioritize family. So what exactly do you prioritize? There are some levels that we get to that money ceases to be a priority. And hey, I'm not saying that money is a bad thing. We all look for jobs, or we all look for opportunities to get money. But there are levels that you get into that money ceases to be a priority. Some people just want a stable job that they can learn, that they can utilize their skills, that maybe they're not idle at home. They're not idle at home wherever they are, because money is not a problem. And there's a level where you are where money is the key motivator for working. So in summary, what I'd said is that you need to understand what are your priorities. And you need to also understand how long do you need to make a genuine impact in a job. Because it's not just about working. It's not just about going to that work. But it's about being very honest and very genuine with yourself to give value. Because at the end of it all, you're being paid. It's an investment that the employer is making on you. So how long is enough for you? Is it 2 years? You get into a job and within 2 years you've made an impact? Well and good. Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? How long does it take you to make an impact? Another thing I'd also said is that, does the company have internal growth opportunities? I gave an example of one person I admire so much, who started in a company in the lowest rank. That was a graduate trainee position, and now they've grown into that company to the group CEO. I mean, will you tell me that this is a person that lacked ambition? As we always say, that people who stay in one company for too long is lack of ambition, it's stability, is comfort, because this person has grown. So you need to look at it, the company where you are currently, the organization that you are, or even the job that you are. What are the possibilities for you to move to the next grade in the next 2 years, to move to the next role in the next 2 years? What are the growth opportunities like? What is the culture of the company? Does it embrace growth, internal growth? So if you're in one company where in like 5 years you can change jobs twice within the same company, from where I sit, that is growth. And at the end of it all, what matters more is growth. Are you growing in that job where you are? Are you growing? So it's important to consider such factors as opportunities that are available for you to grow, what your priorities are at that level. Then again, another thing, at different levels of our careers, we prioritize different things, of course. So if you're an entry level, maybe your key priority will be, I want to experience as many environments as possible so I can build skills in different areas, which is a perfect thing. So you'll find at entry level careers, there's a lot of movement. When you get to mid-level, you begin to stabilize. There's what we call professional maturity begins to come in, and that's the level where you're probably getting into a leadership role. You're probably you're getting into a leadership role, and now you begin to slow down in terms of hopping or moving from one job to another, because priority now is not just learning skills, but again establishing your name and gaining stability. So what level are you at? Now, when you get to the next level, which could be the exec level or even mid-level management, so again, impact becomes a key priority. Creating a lasting impact, building meaningful relationships becomes a key priority. So if you're at that level, you wouldn't just want to leaving a lasting impression becomes a key priority. So you wouldn't want to hop from one job to another. So guys, there's no right answer for how long you should stay. I always say, as long as you have given value, you have also learned, you've reached to the level where you feel you're not learning any new thing, and of course, your priorities can change anytime. But before I leave, or before I go to the next point, one thing I would want you to take away, or rather to take note of from this point, is that short stints will always affect you. So also you need to be reasonable enough. You can't be changing jobs after every 1 year, after months or so. Short stints will affect you. If you're in a place where you're not growing, it is comfort. The most important thing is growth and advancing yourself throughout your career. Question number 5 is a 2-in-1 question. It's about tailor-making applications for different jobs. So one person asked, how do I tailor-make my applications for different jobs? Then, of course, I'm linking it with another question on should I tailor-make my CV or my applications for every job? And of course, if I was to apply for 100 jobs, will it mean that I will have 100 CVs? It's an interesting question that I get asked so many times. So the first thing, yes, you need to tailor-make your applications or your resume, your CVs, your cover letters for different jobs that you're applying for. To answer the second question, it doesn't mean that you're going to have 100 CVs because you're going to apply for more than 100 jobs. What this typically means, from where I see it, is that you can't have a one-size-fits-all CV. And there are the simple things as aligning the title in your CV to the title of the job. There are the simple things as getting to understand what are the key skills that are required in the job description and putting them in your CV. Why I say this is that you understand that you can have 100 skills. You can be a good communicator, a good negotiator, collaboration. You can have the greatest stakeholder management skill, relationship management, customer centric. But you'll find that job A, may not need all these skills. It may only prioritize like 3. So why I say that it's important to customize, if you find that a job prioritizes maybe 3 of your top skills, then why can't you put them on the top? Because when people are doing shortlisting, they're quickly looking to pick what is relevant. Especially where shortlisting is manual. Not all companies have advanced enough to use AI and the likes, use ATS, that is the applicant tracking system, when doing their shortlisting. So some companies, some recruiters still do manual, where they have to go through 1,000 plus or 100 plus CVs. So if you're customizing simply means putting what is relevant first, or putting what is relevant at the earlier stages or at the earlier parts of your CV. So when I look at your CV, immediately I'm able to pick what I'm looking for. So it's important that you get to understand the job description and pick at least the key skills that the job is looking for. And of course, even if you have 100 plus skills, I've seen CVs that have over 30 plus or 20 plus skills. So if the job that you're applying for wants the 30 or the best 5, please just pick the best 5. You don't need to have 30 or 15 plus skills in your CV. It also makes the document unnecessarily bulky. So it's about picking what is relevant for that job and leaving what is unnecessary. It could be your experience, like somebody was asking, which I think it's a good example to use for this question. Now, I have 15 years of experience. I started out maybe 15 years ago as an intern. I went to some school, like in Africa or in Kenya, it's very common after graduating from high school, you go and teach in a school. But now I am the director or a general manager of this company. Does this experience of being a teacher 15 years ago count? That's what I mean when you're talking of picking what is relevant. So an experience of 15 years ago may not be relevant now. An experience that you had when you are a teacher somewhere, but now maybe you're in a different field, may not matter. So customizing is simply about picking what is most relevant for the job. What is the priority for that job in terms of skills, in terms of experience, in terms of even the naming, the wording, the titles in your resume? What is the priority for that job? So yes, it's important that you customize your applications for each and every job that you're applying to. The next question, which I believe is question number 6, is, should I apply for a job if I don't meet the requirements 100%? If I'm not 100% qualified? So my answer is, I have never seen anyone who is 100% qualified. I am a big believer in hiring for attitude and not for skills, and hiring for skills and not for purpose. I hope you get the difference. Hiring for attitude and not for skills, and hiring for skills and not for purpose. So yes, you should apply for a job even if you are 100% not qualified, because I don't know any person who's 100% qualified. Because at the end of it all, no matter how experienced you are, there's one thing that you're still gonna have to learn. There's one thing that you still need to know. You'll always keep learning. So let me give you a typical example. If a job is looking for 9 years of experience and you have 3, don't apply, because that means you're not even 50%. You're not even half the qualifications. So if a job is looking for someone with a nursing degree and you have a HR degree like myself, don't apply, because those are the things that we call the basic requirements. So if you do not meet the basic requirements, and usually the basic requirements are around education, the basic requirement will be around knowledge of a specific system. The basic requirement will be around industry. The basic requirement will be around years of experience. So in the event like I've just given, if a job is looking for a nursing degree and you have HR, of course, these are 2 different things. These are 2 different fields. They have 2 different skill sets, 2 different jobs and roles. Years of experience, as I've said, looking for 9 years of experience, you only have 3. These 2 jobs, a 3-year experience and a 9-year experience, obviously, they are at different level. This is at the highest level, this is at the lowest level. So you're not even meeting in half. And another one also is in terms of language. If the job is looking for a French speaker, you don't speak French, of course you can't fit in. So in the event that you apply when you meet like 70% of the qualifications. If a job is looking for 9 years of experience, it's a HR job, you have HR qualifications, you've ticked that box. You have that industry experience, you've ticked that box. So the only contention is that you don't have the 10 years of experience or the 9 years of experience, but at least you have 6. That means you have 6 or 7, you can do that job, because number one, you've met the basic qualifications. So it's important to check if you meet the basic qualifications of a job, and generally, at least if you meet up to 70% of the required qualifications, then you apply. But please don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself too much. As long as it is within you've met the basic requirements, it is within your industry, it is within you've checked the JD and you have most of the skills, like I'm saying, you meet up to like 70%, please proceed and apply for the job. The next question is, how do I talk about career gaps? How do I talk about how do I put them in my resume? How do I talk about them in an interview? For the longest time, since I started career coaching, since I started my profession in HR, issues around career gaps has been a problem. People struggle with issues on career gaps. People struggle with explaining career gaps. For some reasons, the job market where we operate in, career gaps are evidently criminalized. I put that in quote, because mostly you find that when you're seen with a gap, somebody thinks that you are either terminated from a job. It speaks about experience, about your character. So that is why job seekers fear about talking about career gaps. People would rather hide them, and I think that's the most common practice I see, which is very dangerous, because at the end of it all, it will be discovered. So how do I speak about career gaps? There's a video that I've done, of course I linked it, but even before then, speak about them truthfully, boldly. If it was a termination or based on a mistake that you did, please explain what you've learned. Take responsibility, and of course let it be a learning point for you. If it was about redundancies, if it was about restructuring or closing of businesses, it is normal. It happens every other day. So the least that you want to do is hiding it, because I find most people don't even put it in the CV. Another way to approach this question around career gaps is that, experience about career gaps is that, please talk about the things that you're doing during that gap. I am a big believer of nobody ever sits not doing anything. During that time when you're on a break or whatever reason that you have the gap, you're doing something. You could be taking care of a child. You could be taking care of a sick family member. You could have gone into personal business. You could be taking a course. But why are we not always quick to talk about what we are doing during these breaks or during this time that we have gaps? Because I've met people who have discovered their passion and their true calling during their times of career gaps or taking breaks. So the first thing you want to do is to include what you have been doing during that gap in your CV, so then it does not look like a gap. If you went back to school, you learned a skill. It's very important to let the prospective employer know that you had gone back to school and you've learned a skill, and just list the skills that you've learned. If you've gone into personal business, you're doing consultancy, freelancing, that's amazing, because you're still utilizing your skills, and no employer doesn't need someone who's entrepreneurial, because that's a business. Every company is a business. So you need to talk about what you've been doing during this time. So just to summarize this point, do not be dishonest about them. Don't hide them in between somewhere that your CV doesn't show that there's no gap. If there's a gap, let there be a gap. Be truthful, because if they do background checks about you, of course, the truth will always come to light. So be truthful and include the transferable skills that you've learned in whatever you're doing during the break in your CV, to also help the employer know again, what have you been doing during this time that you had a gap. The next question is, how do I decline a job offer without breaking or compromising my relationship with the recruiter or the company? Wow, this is a common one in the market or in the industry today, because at any one point that someone is looking for a job, I promise you, they're interviewing for any interview that comes. They're doing multiple interviews. So you get that at the time that you're getting offer A, you have another offer B, you have another C, D. Some people even have 4 at a go. At the end of it all, you'll do your analysis and you pick the best company. So how do you decline all these other companies? The least that you want to do, guys, is to wait and decline on the last day. Like company A has given you an offer, you've already signed and accepted it. Then they're waiting for you 30 days. On the last day, you send an email declining. What you've actually done is to take these people back to the drawing board. So please, if you have to decline, one thing you have to keep in mind is that it is professional to do it earlier enough. So you also give the other party more time to look for an alternative candidate. And another thing, do not keep quiet about it. I have seen instances where candidates stay with an offer for company A and they completely go mute. On the day of reporting, maybe reach out to them and they tell you, I'm sorry, I'm not reporting. Some don't even get back. So please communicate. So you need to communicate early enough. It's okay to decline. It's okay to decline, but you need to communicate early enough. And please never go mute on a company, because that one, you really you're denting your profile, because at the end of it all, someday you may get the same people in a different company. So communicate on time and also ensure that you're very professional. It's good to communicate it on email, even if communicate it on email and just make it formal, and just appreciate them for taking their time to interview you, take you through that entire process. So it's okay to decline, but ensure it is professional, ensure it is timely, and ensure that you do not mute or completely disappear without giving zero communication at all. Another common question that I get is, can I change careers at any level through my professional life or at any level of my career? Wow, it's an interesting question, because I encounter so many people who want to change careers. Most of the time I always say that passion finds us along the way. Passion finds us when we've gotten into other things. Some people discover their purpose late, some people discover their passion late. So can you change a career at any point? From where I sit, I believe you can change a career at any point. The most important thing is getting to understand the industry that you want to go into, or the job that you want to go into, and preparing yourself early enough. You may not have experience or skills for that industry, but preparing yourself early enough and developing those skills, either through taking an additional course, either through doing volunteer jobs, either through freelancing, offering your skills for free, or even just through freelancing early enough, and also understanding what are the transferable skills that you need to carry from this job to the other job. So yes, you can change careers at any time, but as I always say, that career change, career transitions, career change needs a lot of planning. A lot of planning in terms of just gaining that knowledge prior, planning yourself financially, understanding that industry, understanding that job, and also the humility sometimes to even start from the lowest, because you'll find sometimes when you're transitioning, you do not have experience in that field, so you may need to start from somewhere. Going there with a mindset of learning, you may have been the top in this other side, but now, like, for instance, you've studied HR, but you've never practiced it. So you're in marketing and you've gotten to the level of a marketing manager, but now you want to transition into HR. Sometimes you may be thrown to start from somewhere. So do you have the humility to start from down, to learn? So those are the things that you need to actually think about when you want to transition at whatever level that you are. But yes, you can make a transition at any time. Guys, the next question is a very interesting one. So someone asked me that, can I go back to my former employer? Can I go back to work for a company that I worked for previously, and how does it look on me? To start with, I have gone back to a former employer. I've worked for one company twice. How did it look on me? I don't know, but I don't think it had any implications. So yes, you can go back, but what matters is two key things. Number one, why did you leave? Number two is the time frame. Why did you leave that company first? You can't just leave a company today and tomorrow you want to go back. You can't just leave a company today and after 6 months you're applying to go back. So why did you leave in the first place? Because I've also seen some tricks that people use. People leave, they go and get a higher salary. So then when they come back, they have a greater negotiation power, which, okay, if it works for you, but I don't think that's really professional. So you need to consider what reasons triggered your leaving. If you left because the company is toxic, now that you want to come back, has it changed? If you left because of a bad manager, is that manager still there? If you left because you're not growing, is there now growth? Why did you leave? So you need to analyze what was your reason for leaving that company in the first place before even thinking of coming back. The number two, as I've said, is the timelines or the time span. How long ago did you leave the company? Like in my case, I went back to a company I left after 3 years. So after 3 years, when I left, in these 3 years, I had gathered enough skills. I had matured, I had a good experience. And when I went now, I went to a more senior role. So also, the span matters because you don't want to go to a company and go back in the same role. If you're coming back after 3 years, I assume you've probably learned, you've probably gone up higher. So that means the skills, you've developed new skills and you're not going to come back to the same job. So those are the things that comes actually on top of my mind that you need to consider. But it's not a bad thing to go back to the company. So you just need to evaluate your why did you leave and why are you getting back? Are you getting back at a better level? Are you getting back at a better pay? Has the issues that made you leave changed? And again, I've also had companies call people back just when sometimes they realize your value, which I don't know how that, maybe if it sits well. But I've also had companies come back, call people back because you are a critical skill, you are very key talent, your role was is very important to the business, to the achievement of the objective of the business. So it's good to analyze, get to understand your why, and of course, after how long and what value does that add to your career. The next question, which is so common, is does taking a counter offer risk my career in the company? Wow. Many years back, I think like 2 years ago, it's not many years, I did a video on counter offers. I may also have to link that one. I did a video on counter offers and I gave a very long explanation on, I didn't say you should not take, neither did I say you should take, but I gave you just things that you need to consider before accepting a counter offer. First, what is a counter offer? A counter offer comes in when you give your resignation or your intentions to leave a company. And it's a tactic that the employers will use to try to hold you, especially when they still need you. So should you take a counter offer, and how does that paint you? Does it risk my stay in the company? Yes or no? So before you take a counter offer, the most important things you need to consider is first, why did you resign and what are your priorities? Because when people are resigning, when people make decisions to leave companies, they have like a whole list of the reasons. I want to get an increase in my pay. I've not been growing in this company. Oh, my manager, this and that. The environment, this and that. So you list these reasons until number 10 or whatever number. So, for example, if one of your reasons for leaving is because of being underpaid, or it's money, let's just say it's money. So that means that is your major reason. So money is there on the top. So the moment you take a counter, they give you the money, of course. So the money reason ceases to be number one because at that point you're satisfied. So it becomes maybe number last or number 10 or number whatever. But it makes that reason, that second reason you had for leaving, become number one again. So let's say if the second reason you had for leaving was because of workload. Number one, I wanted more pay. Okay, my employer has given me that. Number two is workload. So has the counter offer addressed the workload? So if it has not addressed the workload, the money will make you happy just for a short time. Then the workload issue now begins to get so intense. So that's why you find that most candidates who take counter offers Unless in a very special circumstance, don't stay longer. We are told that most candidates who take counter offers are back to the market in just less than 60 days. So you need to evaluate if that counter will be able to solve all the list that you had. Well and good, please take it, because at the end of it all, you look, if it will cover all those things that were bothering you, then why even move? But if it will not, if it will only maybe sort one, tick one or two, and make the rest still pending, I promise you the rest are still going to surface up again as major ones, just in a short while. So before you take a counter offer, you really need to consider why. Then how does it risk your career in the company? Yes, it can. It can risk your career in the company because, number one, you've already shown your employer that you can leave anytime. So, I mean, you've already shown me that you can leave. So if you are a critical resource in the company, what makes me not get ready so that when you leave me as an employer, I am ready? So go some very in most instances, silently someone else will start getting trained on your so that they can take up your job. Some employers would start looking silently so that when you pull that on them again, they're also covered, because at the end of it all, it's business, and the employer also will not want to be exposed. So you really need to understand the current business environment clearly, that number one, the employer has known that you have intentions of leaving. If it's a critical role, they're going to have to get ready. Succession planning now is going to be very intentional so that they're covered the moment you now again decide to leave. So guys, those are the things that you need to consider. Taking a counter offer will not be a bad thing if it meets all your needs. And whether it risks your job in the company, yes, it may risk your job, especially if you're a critical resource. The employer now will be getting ready. Sometimes it may not risk your job, especially if you get to square out all the issues that are triggered your intentions for leaving. So the next question is, in every employment contract, there is a required notice period that if I don't give, I am required to pay in lieu. So must I serve notice when I resign, or can I just leave an employer and maybe pay them in lieu of notice? And how does that come out, especially in terms of my character? How does that play out on me? So, we are in a generation where I see people resign even on WhatsApp and just disappear. We're in a generation where people give their resignations right now and tell you, you know what, tomorrow I'm not coming. So people resigning and not having notice is becoming an increasingly alarming occurrence that I see in the workplace. So should you serve notice? Yes, it's the best thing to do. And I know someone else asked me when I said it's good to serve notice because of professionalism and also ensuring that you don't burn bridges, man. We don't want to burn bridges, Someone also asked me, what if it was the employer who was terminating me? Will they give me a notice? A good question. Yeah, well, I know when you're terminated, you're not given a notice. But let's talk about the resignation bit. So you have been working for this company for 4 years, 5 years, whatever number of years, 1 year. And there is a portfolio of clients, a portfolio of work that you've been holding. And you just wake up one day and give your resignation and leave. How do you expect your employer to go through that transition? I know there's succession planning. I know there's all that, but there's also the aspect of handing over. So guys, it's professional to serve your notice. Unless you're extremely not in a position to, you can pay in lieu of notice. But please, when you can, it's quite important that you serve notice. And one thing I always also like to tell people, sometimes when you get an organization that want to hire you so fast, want to even pay notice period and all that, sometimes it could be a red flag, especially depending on the role that you're getting into. But to answer this question, yes, it is important to give notice. But of course, I understand, especially in Kenya, the law says that you can pay in lieu of whatever months, 1, 2, or 3 months notice. If you can pay in lieu, well and good. But it is professional. It is good. It is a good practice that when you resign, please serve your notice. It is respectful. And it also ensures that you do not break important professional relationships. So the next question, guys, is Should I go back to school if I want to change a career, or must I go back to school if I want to make a career change? So my approach to this question is, you don't necessarily have to go back to school. But one thing you need to do is you need to identify the skills that are required in that new career line that you need to transition into, and learn those skills. You may not only learn those skills through going back to school, but you may learn the required skills, or you may learn the required knowledge through so many learning platforms. YouTube is just one of them. There are so many online courses. But it depends at what level you are transitioning. If it is at a higher level, you find sometimes the more you go up the ladder in your career, the more certain qualifications becomes a priority. Like in some organizations, we always do, like maybe in NGOs or in government organizations, when you're getting up the rank, qualifications such as masters, maybe PhD, will make a lot of sense. So if it is in such lines or in consultancy that you want to get into, then it's important that you can go back to school. But the question I'm addressing is, must you go back to school? You must not go back to school, but you must acquire the necessary skills that are needed for you to make a successful transition. So get to understand what are the skills that are needed, and now what are the transferable skills that you can carry from your current job to that job that you want to transition to. So getting to understand the skill set that is required for that job is quite important. Getting to understand the industry and just aligning yourself with that industry, getting to know how things work in that industry is much more important than even going back to school to acquire a new degree. Then another thing is, consider what you're going back to school to study. Is it a certification that is required for that field? If it is a certification, then yes, it is important for you to go back to school. Let me give you an example. Like in accounting profession, you did accounting maybe in your undergraduate, but you've not been practicing accounting. So going back to school to study something like ACCA or CPA is important for you to make a successful transition. So at that point, you want to go back to school to study CPA. For accounting in Kenya, you need to be a CPA and all that. So in such instances, you need to understand what exactly you're going back to school to do. Like those professional certifications are very, very important. So if you don't have a professional certification yet and you want to transition into that industry, yes, you should go back to school and get that specific certification. Next question is, what type of questions should I ask in an interview when given a chance to do so? And let me just link it with another question so that I don't separate them. Another one is it okay to say no when given a chance to ask a question in an interview? So to address the part one, what type of questions should you ask? I always categorize these questions, I think, in three levels. Number one is questions about the job, questions about the company, and questions about the people. So those are the type of questions that you should ask in an interview. So questions about the job is, for example, you want to know, what does the success look like in that job? Is it a new job or is it a replacement? If it's a replacement, why do you think the last person left? How long did they stay? How many people have this job had in the last 5 years? You want to know the retention rate in that job. It will also give you a very clear picture into whether there's a problem with that job in that organization. So those are questions about the job. Those are the exact questions that help you to understand the specific nitty-gritty responsibility. How does a typical day in this job look like for someone? What are the key priorities of this job? How valuable, or where does this job sit when it comes to the achievement of the objectives of the business? Questions about the company that you want to ask. How does it feel like to work in this company? That's a question I like asking the panel. You've been in this company for how long? How has it been like for you to work in this company? What makes you work for this company? What is the culture of the company? So you want to ask questions about the company to get to understand how life in that company looks like, the culture, and just to assess the environment, the work environment in the company. The next is questions about the people. You want to get to understand the team. What is the current structure within this department? Where does this role sit in the structure of that department? How many people do you currently have in that department? And of course, if the hiring manager will be interviewing you, ask them, what type of a leader are you? You know, to what level do you allow your people to give suggestions or to make decisions? What is it that you're lacking from the current team that you have that you'll want to have from the person who's coming in? So those are questions around the people to help you understand the people that you'll be working with, the team that you'll be working with, and the leader that you'll be working with. So guys, I put them into three: questions about the people, questions about the people, questions about the team. Questions about the people, questions about the company, and questions about the job. So those are the questions that you need to ask in an interview. And in answering the second part, whether should I say no or must I answer, or must I ask a question in an interview when I'm given a chance to ask so? The good practice is to ask, but of course you must not ask. Why I always say it's good to ask is someone has been talking to you for the last 1 hour, 30 minutes. And when it gets to your time to ask a question, you say no. So sometimes, for some reasons, it can come out as lack of interest in the job, lack of a deeper understanding in that job. Because when you want to understand something more, you'll always ask questions. So it is a good practice to ask questions, but of course, it is not a must to ask. But, it is also in the time of asking questions that now you can take control of that conversation and you can leverage that as your opportunity to stand out from any other candidate who's been interviewed. And guys, now I'm coming to my last question. I know it's been a long video because getting to ask this question and answer, I know it has taken time. So my last question, or the last question that I want to answer that people ask a lot is it okay to bring notes into an interview room? Because that time you're preparing for an interview, I know you're taking notes, you're having your Kama Kenya somewhere. So is it okay to bring this into the interview? What do you think? Is it okay to bring notes into an interview? So while it's the same way when you're going to do an exam, that time that we are preparing for exams, we are putting notes somewhere. Do we ever work with these notes into the exam room? Unless if we do, and if we are caught, that is an irregularity. So from where I sit, I don't believe it's a good practice to get with your notes into the interview, because interview is an assessment. And when someone is assessing you, they want to understand your level of mastery. And when you've mastered something, nobody will expect you to keep on referring. So from where I sit, no, please don't carry your notes into an interview. It's like carrying Wakenya to an exam room. Carrying your notes into an exam room. So get to understand what you've read or how you've practiced for the interview. Make whatever it is that you're practicing, answering questions, get into your head and make it as natural as possible. And you may not even get time to refer to these notes in an interview. So my answer for this question is no. Please don't carry your notes into the interview, but it's okay to prepare these notes as you prepare for an interview, to refer to them, but not in the interview room. What is the other questions that you'll want me to answer, guys? You can share them in the comment of this video. You can follow me and share them on my DM on LinkedIn. I will be more than happy to do a part 2 of this Q&A. There are so many questions that I get asked every other day. I could only narrow them down and I just pick them randomly to the few that I've answered in this video. But I'll be glad to do a part 2 of this Q&A. Please let me know if you want me to do a part 2. And if you want me to do a part 2, make sure you drop a question that you'll want me to answer in the next Q&A session. It's been nice to do this, just to get to answer your question. If your questions rather, if you've worked with me till this end, please be sure to subscribe. And thank you so much for those who keep on coming, keep on sharing this content, keep on even sending me DMs when you guys are watching. It's so encouraging. Thank you so much. And I'm always happy to help you. As I always say, that if you're in your job search journey, I am a career coach. I'm an interview coach. I help people prepare for interviews. I help people navigate through the hurdles and hassles of building careers. So please feel free to reach out to me through the email that is provided in this platform. I'll be more than glad to partner with you through your career journey. Thank you so much for watching. This is the end of this video. Please subscribe so that you get notified and you become the first to watch the next videos that I'll be posting. Thank you.